Hello everyone, this is Source Codex again. In this go round I'm going to present well-known releases by well-known artists in the jazz rock fusion realm. Kind of the people that got it started. I will also add a few other releases in that I have come across since my earlier video catalog of jazz rock fusion you should own, which were lesser known items. So here we go with the music that totally rewired my neurons when I first heard it. John McLaughlin with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mounting Flame. And this is a remaster and well worth getting to replace perhaps your older version. And another remaster, the Mahavishnu Orchestra Birds of Fire. This was actually the very first Mahavishnu Orchestra I ever heard. And then I went and bought Inner Mounting Flame. Well, McLaughlin reformed the Mahavishnu Orchestra with other great musicians and released Visions of the Emerald Beyond. Again, well worth having. Not like the original lineup, but some really great stuff. Like Eternity's Breath Part 1, Lila's Dance, On the Way Home to Earth. You'll get to hear Jean-Luc Ponty in here as well, and the great drummer Narada Michael Walden. Now, many years later, some tapes were discovered, and a release called the Lost Trident Sessions came out. Really good quality material here. Well worth having in your collection if you don't have it already. This release by McLaughlin, Electric Guitarist, a solo release, but definitely worth having. A lot of great compositions. Now, after the original lineup of the Mahavishnu Orchestra broke up, we had fine releases like Jerry Goodman and Jan Hammer in a release called Like Children. And I recommend you find this one as well. Excuse me. If you liked Hammer's synthesizer work, then I also recommend his solo release, The First 7 Days. Now, lastly, we have sort of a tribute to the Mahavishnu Orchestra called Visions of an Inner Mounting Apocalypse. And you've got guitarists like Lukather, Stern, Morse, Herring, Richmond, Gambale, Haynes, Fusinski, Howe, and Abercrombie. This is worth picking up if you want to hear Tone Center's release honoring the Inner Mounting Flame. Oh, some more CDs coming up. Okay, another landmark fusion release. Return to Forever with Chick Corea on keyboards, called Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy. So we've got Bill Connors, Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke and Lenny White. Again, a release you really need to have. Okay, the other release in my collection that I thought was worthy after Bill Connors left to have is Return to Forever's Romantic Warrior. Everybody did an incredible job on this release. Probably one of the best things fusion-wise that's ever been released, with all the tight compositions and interplay. I even like the piece that Al Di Meola wrote and performed on this as well. A definite must-have. Okay, Stanley Clarke solo, first self-titled release with an amazing group of musicians accompanying him, especially Bill Connors, who just wails on this release. Highly recommended. The other release I have of Stanley Clarke, you either hate his releases or you love them. And this was one that I hated. Nah, just kidding. This is one that I love. School Days. Just wonderful to listen to. Just a great release overall. Ray Gomez, a little known guitarist, is on here. Even McLaughlin on acoustic. But well worth having in your collection if you don't have it already. And after Return to Forever, Chick Corea would releases under the Elektric band. This particular release by Corea has Scott Henderson and Carlos Rios on here. Two good, great guitarists. Last but not least, introducing the 11th House with Larry Coryell. It took a little bit of getting used to hearing brass in a trumpet in a fusion setting, but overall I got used to it, and the track Lolita is well worth the admission for buying this one. Okay, on to more fusion. Alright, another fantastic jazz fusion group that didn't have a guitarist, but they didn't need one. Their music was amazing just as it is. This is one that I recommend. They released a lot, but I'm just going to discuss a few. Black Market is well worth having. You want to get a good sample. The best of Weather Report is a good way to find out what these guys were all about. Great live album, Weather Report 830. I highly recommend this album as well, with the amazing Teen Town and Birdland played live. Gotta hear this. And of course, we have the incredible bass player who started a style that bass players all over the world have adopted. There was nothing else like Jaco Pastorius when he released this self-titled solo release. Just amazing stuff. People would hear this release now and think, what's the big deal? Because so many bass players since this release play like Pastorius paved the path. But this is the release you need to hear to sample what Pastorius was all about, as well as his playing on Teen Town. Now, a great tribute release, or let me forget that. Let's talk about this one. This is another great 2 CD collection called The Essential Jaco Pastorius. Definitely worth getting this one. And lastly, a great Pastorius collection of bass players honoring him is Pastorius. And there's a few bass players you might recognize here. LaRue, Eckhart, Winkle, Garrison. But they all do a great job, and there's some great music on here. And lastly, a tribute put out, I believe, on the Tone Center release is Mysterious Voyages, a tribute to Weather Report. Definitely should get this. I highly recommend it. So, on to more essential. Okay, in my earlier video about jazz rock fusion, I stupidly omitted mentioning Brand X with John Goodsall. This is a band, and this is a live release, live stock, that you definitely want to have in your collection. I have everything they released. I'm not going to discuss them all, but I will put shopping links in the info below the video. So live stock is great to hear. A lot of stretching going on. If you don't want to buy all the releases but want to have a sampling, there is Brand X Extracts, where you get to hear a lot of quality Brand X. Alright, here is another Brand X release called Trilogy. And I highly recommend you get Trilogy as well. 3 CDs, 1, 2, and 3. A lot of great music on Brand X Trilogy. Manifest Destiny, Excommunication, and Live in New York City. And of course, this is a promo copy because, hey, I'm a music reviewer. All right, Brand X, 2 CD, The X-Files, a 20-year retrospective. And there you have it. Another recommended collection of Brand X. You just can't get enough of Brand X. Kind of a funky fusion group. All right, and then we have Brand X, The Missing Period. Another great release. Highly recommended. Look it up and find it. And doing solo work from Brand X, John Goodsall released Fire Merchants, self-titled. Landlords of Atlantis, is the title. And a little bit more rock and less fusion, but you still get to hear Goodsall doing his thing. And we have Fire Merchants, and I believe this one is the self-titled release. And again, it's well worth having. If you're a Brand X fan, you should have this. And here, Goodsall, tear it up. All right, more fusion on the way. Steve Morse and the Dixie Dregs. This is their release called Freefall. Now, the Dixie Dregs might not be to everyone's taste because they could get into some country music sort of leanings. But their compositions were still just wide open, great fusion rock, even if they had a leaning towards almost country music sometimes. But hey, they're the Dixie Dregs from down south. Absolutely essential Dixie Dregs album, What If? I have listened to this over and over and over again. I used to sit and look at the LP and wonder, what's with that cover? I just can't figure it out. And then I turned the LP upside down. It's an ocean with ocean waves coming in to the shore. Ta-da! Now you know the secret. All right, a good collection of the Dregs, the best of the Dregs. Divided we stand. So you get a lot of good ones here. Cruise Control, Take It Off the Top. Great, great stuff. And some more Dregs later on in their career. California Screamin'. A lot of live stuff here, and they reunited after 16 years to do this. They even cover some Allman Brothers and some Zappa. So grab California Screamin'. Now, when the Dregs broke up, Steve Morse formed a band called the Steve Morse Band. How creative. He had the original drummer from the Dregs with him, and he grabbed the bass player from 3 p.m., a jazz rock fusion group from Raleigh, North Carolina, USA, who I used to go see live all the time. But anyway, another great release if you like Steve Morse's playing. I saw him live with Allan Holdsworth in Raleigh. My goodness, Morse was amazing. He just did it all. He covered parts like keyboard parts, synth parts, violin parts. I mean, and the original guitar tracks. He did everything live. I will never forget that concert. Unfortunately, my pregnant wife got ill, and we had to leave before Allan Holdsworth was done warming up. But that's history. That's the way things go. All right, Steve Morse by himself. Steve Morse Band. A favorite by fans voting in on Guitar Player magazine. But well worth having. And the last Dixie Dregs released later in their career that I have is Full Circle. Well worth getting that too. Now, you know, one release I didn't discuss in the Brand X group is Do They Hurt? You definitely have to get that, Brand X. It's all worth it just for the song Cambodia. All right, on to more fusion. I am not done. Scott Henderson and Tribal Tech. Nomad. Get it. Just for the song Beaufat. Just for Beaufat. It's worth having this album. Great stuff. I don't have all of Tribal Tech, but I've got enough to satisfy. Here's Tribal Tech with Gary Willis, the seminal formation of the group. Tribal Tech Illicit. Powerful stuff here. Really awesome stuff. Can't tell you just how great this release is. I think the Big Wave is my favorite. And I'm not reviewing these in order of their release. But here is Tribal Tech Face First with Henderson and Willis. And I think Face First was my favorite song on the track. Here's Tribal Tech, Reality Check, another great release. I think he had Covington and Kinsey playing on that release as well. And here is my autographed copy of Tribal Tech. And what was this? Thick. This is Tribal Tech Thick. I don't even know whose signature that is, but I'm thinking it's Willis. Henderson, you can read. Tribal Tech Thick. Definitely grab it. Then we got Tribal Tech's Rocket Science. Another great release. I recommend it. And Henderson went off and did some other things. He played with Steve Smith and Victor Wooten in a release called Vital Tectones. Cool jams, very cool jams. I was sent another release without any liner notes, but this is Vital Tectones 2, FVTT2. Again on the Tone Center label. And another release I have with Henderson playing on it. Of course, he played with Joe Zawinul on Immigrants and all that, but I don't need to mention that right now or dig that one out. But this is 5 After 4 Notorious with Vito Reza. And Henderson plays on that release as well. So this one's recommended too. Alright. More fusion to discuss. By now, some of you may have figured out I am a guitarist, so I find out what's happening in the guitar world. And this guy who used to play with Miles Davis, Mike Stern, is totally happening. Alright, upside, downside, grab it, get it, good release. Jigsaw, another good release, grab it, get it. Mike Stern, Time in Place, another essential release by what Miles Davis used to nickname him, Sterno. So, we have Odds and Evens, another essential release. Between the Lines by Mike Stern, another essential release. Is What It Is by Mike Stern, another essential release. You can tell I'm speeding up because I have more to do and my battery's running out in my phone. Okay, Mike Stern Standards and Other Songs. Buy them, find them, listen to them. The good stuff. My very first exposure to Allan Holdsworth, and I didn't even know who he was, is his playing on Jean-Luc Ponty's Enigmatic Ocean. Ponty was a jazz fusion violinist. Used to play with McLaughlin in the Mahavishnu Orchestra. But if you want to hear Holdsworth in one of his earliest appearances with another artist, get Enigmatic Ocean. I finally got the full bore effect of Holdsworth in UK's release with Bill Bruford, John Wetton, Eddie Jobson, and Holdsworth himself. I played this LP over and over and over and over again. And probably the song that blew me away is Nevermore. Oh gosh. So that was great. Holdsworth also showed up on Jean-Luc Ponty's Individual Choice. I am going to talk more about Holdsworth's actual releases. He is one of the forefront purveyors and players of jazz fusion guitar. So the Mark Varney project, Truth in Shredding, you get to hear Gombali and Holdsworth trading licks. Find it, get it, buy it. Holdsworth was on Gongzilla, Suffer. Definitely worth a purchase. And some people don't know, but Holdsworth used to play with a avant-garde jazz group called Soft Machine. This is Floating World live. Well worth getting this as well. Many of the Soft Machine group have passed on. Corrado Rustici, deconstruction of a postmodern musician. Corrado used to be in a really great group called Nova. He was the guitarist then. And I believe he was into the Sarai Shinmoy gig just like Holdsworth was back in the days of Nova. But Holdsworth plays on this along with Rustici. Okay, that's another one. Holdsworth also played on Andrea Marcelli's Silent Will. Find that. And he played on Marcelli's Oneness. Definitely find that too. Now Holdsworth had a big part in making Bruford Feels Good to Me the success that it was. I believe Goodsall from Brand X was on this album too, as well as Holdsworth. Bruford, One of a Kind, is also definitely a CD that you need to grab. I highly recommend it. Holdsworth also played on Radio Free Album Moose with Stuart Ham. The name of this CD came from a Philip K. Dick short story. And then Holdsworth's drummer, Chad Wackerman, put out The View. Holdsworth is on that as well. You need to have this. And Wackerman's 40 Reasons. Holdsworth is on there. He goes wild on this release. Holdsworth was also playing on a group, a release, Riptide, Sonic Undertow. Interesting stuff. And then lastly, David Hines' Nebula. Holdsworth is on this release as well. So that's all for right now. More fusion to come. I discussed earlier that Allan Holdsworth used to play with bundles. And this last portion of my jazz fusion, jazz rock fusion recommended landmark releases will concern probably one of my top 3 guitarists I ever discovered, Allan Holdsworth. So bundles, his playing on the Hazard profile is phenomenal. Then Holdsworth played with Tony Williams on several releases. If you want to get them all, just get the Tony Williams Lifetime, the collection. And you will hear Holdsworth smoke. The song Fred and Protocosmos have been played many, many times by many bands and by Holdsworth. Now for the first solo release by Allan Holdsworth, which he absolutely hates, is Velvet Darkness. I will put a link to my review and all the info you need to know about this release in the notes. But if you want to hear Holdsworth in the raw, and sadly he never collected a penny from this release, and it was released without his permission, then listen to Velvet Darkness. Well, after that disaster came along Allan Holdsworth IOU. It was named that because he had to go into Hock and borrow money to release it. But it is well worth having. And I'm not discussing these in any order of their release, just in order of how I pulled it out of my CD shelf. So, here's Allan Holdsworth Road Games. Another good release. I believe Jack Bruce of Cream is singing on this release. And it's kind of a short release, but it's worth being in your collection. Allan Holdsworth's Hard Hat Area. This has been re-released on the Moon June label and remastered. So I will put links to that as well. You want to hear Allan Holdsworth play an electronic guitar called the Syntax? Well, you can hear it on Sand. Another release I highly recommend. Allan Holdsworth, The Wardenclyffe Tower. Another release you should own. The Wardenclyffe Tower was built by and for the famous Nikola Tesla, and he was going to wirelessly broadcast energy. Ideas sort of went south, and Nikola Tesla died penniless. But that's another story. To me, the most accessible and the best solo release Holdsworth ever did is Secrets. That's my personal opinion as a music reviewer and a listener to many of his releases, but this one just sticks in my mind. Here's Allan Holdsworth IOU Live. I think there was a little controversy about this release that Paul Williams got released. I don't think he asked Holdsworth if he could do that. Alright, another favorite right there next to Secrets is Metal Fatigue. I think many rock and rollers discovered Holdsworth via this release. I see it mentioned many, many times in many forums as a favorite of Holdsworth. Many people say he's just not accessible. Listening is hard. But you know, you need to have the right ears and the right neurons to take Holdsworth in. If you want more of a straight-ahead jazz release, then None Too Soon is for you. Recommended. If you don't want to buy everything and you just want a sampling, the Best of Allan Holdsworth Against the Clock offers a good sample of Holdsworth over the years. It is a 2 CD release. Well done. Best new track never released before on here is Shenandoah. Beautiful, beautiful version of an old song. More Syntax, Allan Holdsworth, a Tabacron. Which reminds me, I couldn't find Allan Holdsworth Flat Tire, but Allan Holdsworth Flat Tire release is well worth having. I have simply lost it. Alright, All Night Wrong, Allan Holdsworth, a live recording. And I was told the track Alfrazalin is named after a drug that Holdsworth had to take to calm him down performing live. I could be wrong, but I know what stage fright is like. It is paralyzing. Another great release, The 16 Men of Tain by Allan Holdsworth. And I guess that's supposed to be him right there. Alright, if you want a release that Holdsworth played on where he really rocks out and he almost breaks into 4/4 time on his soloing, if you want to hear him jamming like crazy and almost a rock worthy fusion, then get Heavy Machinery. There are 2 versions of this release. It's got the same music on it. Anders Johansson on drums and the amazing keyboardist Jens Johansson doing solos that I swear is so close to Holdsworth I had trouble deciphering what was keyboard and what was guitar. But highly recommended. And then we have Allan Holdsworth Group live. The release is called Then. And all the same partners in crime are on this release that he's played with many years before. So I recommend it. Holdsworth on guitar, Hunt on keyboards, Husband on drums, Jimmy Johnson bass guitar. And this just came in this week. I bought this CD DVD combo release, and I'm going to try and pronounce it. Leverkusen, 1997. So this is a live recording of Holdsworth. You got the DVD and you've got a CD. I think this was released on the Manifesto label. Yes, it was. And they plan on releasing more stuff by Holdsworth in the future. So this is not a comprehensive by any means coverage of Holdsworth, but it's a pretty darn good start if you want to hear the man evolve through time, his music. So sad that he has passed away. We will never hear anything new by him. And lastly, I want to mention a couple CDs for you to look for. This is Fusion for Miles, a guitar tribute. Came out again on the Tone Center label, which they are famous for fusion. And a lot of people say that fusion started with Miles Davis and his Bitches Brew release. Well, I can hardly suggest that you go ahead and find that release as well. I mean, people like Mike Stern, John McLaughlin, Joe Zawinul, I can't think of all of them right now, but a lot of great musicians, Adam Holdsworth, that played with Miles Davis have gone on to be just amazing musicians. So this release and Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, I would heartily recommend. And so that's it right now for my fusion recommendations. It's not exhaustive by any means, but if you want to learn what fusion's all about, if you're a guitarist and you want to learn how to play fusion, then try to do the licks that these guitarists are using in the releases I have recommended. And I just want to say thanks to all the artists mentioned for all the decades of enjoyment that I have received listening to their music. So long for now. I hope this video guide was helpful. Ciao.